I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change, and though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains quake at its swelling pride. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy dwelling places of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She will not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations made an uproar. The kingdoms tottered. He raised his voice. The earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Come, behold the works of the Lord, who has wrought desolations in the earth. He makes wars to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariots with fire. Cease striving and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Let us pray. Father, we praise you that we can come before you, and we know for a fact that our dear brother in the Lord continues to be with you. We praise him. We come to honor his life and the life of Christ in him today. We ask that you would comfort those who need comforting, Lord. Pray for his family. Pray for his closest friends and loved ones. Pray for each and every one that's here today. There is a piece of within each of us that is missing, and so we thank you and celebrate his life and Christ in him. We ask your blessing on this time together. May we have good memories of Greg, for he shared many with us. And we give you all the glory today in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Mallory?
I'd like to read Greg's obituary. Gregory Anthony Valle, 47, of Denton, passed away on November 22, 2012, at Baylor Medical Center, Grapevine. He was born February 8, 1965, in San Jose, California, to Tony Valle and Alice Martinez. He was the youth minister at New Creation Fellowship in Denton. Mr. Valle is survived by two sisters, Maricela Ballestero of Fresno, California, and Esperanza Garcia of San Jose, California, and other extended family members. Now I'd like to read a poem, an original of Greg's. As many of you know, he was very creative and had a lot of different outlets, and I felt like this one really expressed why he was at New Creation Fellowship and chose to stay here for so long. The title is Bone. I am no longer my own, but am now bone of his bone, a part of a greater, a part of a whole. Though I have my own mind and my own thoughts, I surrender them to a collective for the sake of Christ. I am no longer my own, for I have rights, but I give them with gladness for the sake of Christ. And now give all, for I am now bone of his bone.
This is another one of his points that hit me when I was reading it, and hopefully, this will touch somebody. It's called Formless Void. Before I was formed, you knew my innermost being. You knew the trials and the temptations I would one day face, and made preparation for that day. I was formless and void before I ever was considered, and was till the day I came into your being, known and formed in you.
Scott, you want to come and let's do a few songs? Okay. We'd like to take this time to play some songs, and obviously they're not typical Greg, but we want y'all to feel free to just join in and share because we just praise the Lord for his life. So let me clear this out.
Yeah, if we were doing Greg songs, we'd have to have a mosh pit, but all right. Thought this one was particularly fitting. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fear relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, his mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. The Lord has promised good to me. His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, his mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. The earth shall soon dissolve like snow, the sun forbear to shine, but God who called me here below will be forever mine, will be forever mine. You are forever mine. 'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just just to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise, just to know thus saith the Lord. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I've proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I've proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Oh, how sweet to trust in Jesus, just to trust his cleansing blood, just in simple faith to plunge me 'neath the healing cleansing flood. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I prove him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. When peace like a river, well, I was about to sing Away in the Manger with that. So maybe we won't do that one. How about we'll do a different one? It's been too long since I've done that. This is a familiar chorus. Sing hallelujah to the Lord. Sing hallelujah to the Lord. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah to the Lord. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Praise Father, Son. Praise Father, Son. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Jesus is risen from the dead. Jesus is risen from the dead. Jesus is risen. Jesus is risen. Jesus is risen from the dead. Sing hallelujah to the Lord. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah to the Lord.
Well, we wanted to, we have people looking in from all over the world through Skype, and we wanted to offer an opportunity for anybody to share a little bit, just like an open forum. The thing is, because we are on Skype, you need to come up here. And but I want to do that, and we have people in Ireland, and we have people in Washington State, and Arizona, and North Dakota, and Finland, and Arkansas, and Pennsylvania, and so I thought about coloring my hair today, or shaving it, and then wearing all black, but that wouldn't be me, would it? I can't be like Greg, so I want to just open that up, and let's start sharing. Does somebody on Skype want to be the first, or? Okay. And in the meantime, if somebody wants to be coming forward, don't be shy. Surely you've got something to say about Greg. This is your chance. Here comes Debbie. Okay.
Well, the boys wanted to say that they celebrated Halloween by wearing clothes like Greg. They had their little black skeleton suits on, and they got compliments from Greg. He really liked their clothes. So anyway, yeah. Just a couple of things. To me, something, a personal note, that just one-on-one with Greg, it was always the best. Just his sharing and his heart and the one-on-one, just the clarity of the Lord and the friendship and just the peace of the Lord was always there with him. And I always appreciated any one-on-one time that I got with him. And it was always good to give him a call. He always had something really sweet from the Lord. And just that one-on-one, that's always has meant so much to me. Sometimes, in church, sometimes he'd ramble a little bit, get a little lengthy, and we go, skip a bit, Scott, we say skip a bit, Scott, so I don't know why we do that, but anyway, just his clarity of bringing Christ, that was always really, really precious, and I know he has a lot of great friends here that receive that same friendship in the Lord. One great memory was at Mardi Gras. Maybe some of you will remember this. We'd go down there as a church, and we witnessed, and him and I were partners a lot, and he usually had the blue mohawk, but there was one evening, it was very late, we left probably around 2 a.m., our group was 2 or 3, we were leaving, and we were in the big van. I think Bernie was driving, not you, Pat, I think that's who it was, and it was just totally full of people, and somehow we may have made a wrong turn, but anyway, I think we were going down Bourbon Street, and as we were going down Bourbon Street, it was just packed with people. You couldn't get the van through there. And all the crazy people out on the streets began to rock the van, going back and forth, back and forth. Well, Greg got out with that blue mohawk, and he had the authority of the Lord on him. And the waters of the people divided. They just backed up. They just moved away. He said, move away from the van, and they did. But anyway, Wanted to break the ice there. It was a great memory of him, and we're so thankful that his family's here. His two sisters are here. If y'all want to raise your hands back there, and a brother-in-law, and y'all want to greet them later, that we just love them and appreciate them.
Well, I was sick with pneumonia for the last month, and I didn't get to see Greg for a long time before he left us. But I guess one of my first memories of Greg was at the International Street Ministers Conference. How many of you went with us to that thing? And we went there, and it was really good because all of the ministries that were there were, down-to-earth people. And I bumped into Greg. I think there was a escalator going down, and he was coming up. We looked at each other, and we're pointing at each other. And so he said, as he was going on up and I was going down, he said, "I want to talk to you." Big mistake. And so we got together and we just talked. I mean, we talked about Jesus, but we really just, it was street ministry and all that, but it was more than that. And we really felt a real likeness of heart. And so, we left that year, and he left and went back to California. He'd come all the way out for that. And so the next year, we went to that conference again. And so, I don't know, it seemed like the conference had kind of changed. This was a street ministers conference, and people were in suits now compared to the year before, and it was like a lot of official sort of stuff going on. So I just sort of wandered out of the meeting and was just standing out there, just sort of thinking about the Lord and whatever, and looked over, and there was Greg. He said, "Hey, man." I said, "Hey." We got to talking. We spent that whole conference out there talking. And again, it was just like dynamite. It was so good. And so when we got close to the end, Greg said, "Hey, I want to, I'd like to come out and visit the place and, see how things are going." So we arranged it, and Greg came out from California later on and showed up, and so he was hanging around a little while, and he had a friend with him. Some of you might remember. I don't remember his name. Eddie. Now I remember his name. And but anyway, Greg agreed. He said, "Well, he said, I've got a lot going on back in California, but I'm going to come for a year." The rest is history. It just stayed. But there was no one like Greg. There was nobody like Greg. And everybody, it didn't matter what one of the things when we first met was Greg was a punk rocker. Well, my hair was long at the time, and I came out of the hippie movement, and they came out of the hippie movement. They hated the hippie thing, and they became punk rockers to rebel against the hippies. There was nothing in our culture that matched us up, and yet we just really got along, And I'm just really thankful to have gotten to know Greg. Nobody like Greg.
Yeah, as Randy was talking, I was just thinking about, different times when I would, look around at our little motley crew around here and think, man, this is the craziest group of people to be together, and thinking about Randy and me and Greg and different people and just how different our backgrounds were and how unlikely it was that we would find ourselves all together in the same place, serving the same Jesus and after the same purpose. But I just remember a lot of different outreach trips that we took, just riding in the same vehicle with Greg and just sharing the Lord. But Greg and I's relationship mostly, honestly, was just, we were always, trying to be come up with a joke that the other one hadn't heard, So that was kind of our ongoing thing, was like, have you heard this one? But I always think of one day I came in the church with my grandson Elijah when he was pretty young, and Greg had his beanie on that had the skull and crossbones on the front of it. And I said, Elijah, what is that on Greg's head there? He goes, it's a bonehead. I said, yes, it is.
Oh, man. I was thinking about, I got too much. I'm not going to say it, but I was thinking about what Scott was saying about Greg and I. We were just joking all the time, and I was thinking about the time when I first got here. There was like 7 or 8 of us in the back room back there. Well, it's Greg's room. Every room in here is called Greg's room because Debbie be like moving stuff. Put it in Greg's room. I'm like, which one? He's lived in every one. The closet over there, Randy's office upstairs, but down there. Only thing was in apartments. So anywhere left you can go. I don't know, that little door over there. But anyways, we're sitting there lying in our bunk beds. He's over here, I'm over here, And Greg goes, man, you know what's funny? I said, what? I've only been here like a week. And he's like, I'm 30 years old and I'm sleeping in a bunk bed. I said, you want to know what's funnier than that? I'm 27. I'm sleeping in a bunk bed next to you. So he laughed, And about a week later, he's getting back with me. He's like, I'm sleeping and I swear something going, Grass. I'm freaking out, I'm in a Bible school, it's not supposed to be happening, So the next morning I'm like, Greg, do you hear like something saying your name in the middle of the night, or saying something? He goes, yeah, I do. I go, really? He goes, yeah. I hear him saying, Chris, and I say, he's over there. So I was like, oh, jeez, So I got the pleasure of living with Greg for about 3 years across the street. So this continue on like a couple years later, So I was sharing with his family about how his room is here and my room is over here, and in between, the bathroom and the walls and everything. And I was on the computer, and all of a sudden my feet are getting wet. I'm going, what is going on? So I realized that the water's coming through. So I go around the corner and I go in his room, and Greg's is fast asleep, and there's water flooding, and he's I said, Greg, there's a flood, man. What's going on? And he gets up, and I start to remember. I told him last night, but I started to remember what he said. He gets out and whoosh, he's swimming around practically. He goes, Marco. I says, Polo, the water here busted, it's like 40 gallons of water, my dog's swimming, there's a guy, skipping rocks, so I said, fish out of water, so everything just like that, and there's so many times like that, he just cracked. He had this little like frozen hand in the freezer. I go to get something, and I go, jeez, every week I got to deal with this thing. We throw this out already. It's getting old. Or he had his BB gun. he knocks on the door. I say, yeah, come on in. He comes in. He's like, hey. I go, what do you got? You got a gun, dude? He goes, nah, it's a BB gun. I go, ah! He's cracking up, I go, don't shoot me with it. Anyways, it's funny. We had a lot of good times and holidays, and the man never complained, lose a leg or, I mean, he just loved the Lord and never changed. Like, I mean, he's always the same, Greg. Loved the 80s, loved sci-fi, love Halloween. The UNT students, all these UNT students around here, and he'd sit outside with his in his wheelchair and have his leg, and he had this this machete was fake, had fake blood on it, and as a hockey mask, he'd sit there, like this, people walk by, he just laughed. He goes, I scared like three Chinese girls. The Chinese girls were like, I get out of here, Or they just moved here, So he was always doing crazy stuff like that. He really loved my dog and stuff, and my dog would he'd entertain my dog entertained me, But I always appreciated Greg because it's a guy I could trust and a guy I could talk to. No matter what was going on, and he can keep a secret. He can keep a secret. His conversation with the Lord was continual, even though a lot of people, I don't know if they knew that or not, but one day he came to me and he says, hey man, I was lying in my bed and I said, so what's up, Lord? And I heard somebody go, well, what's up with you? It was the Lord, so I said, are you sure? But that's how tight he was with God, and he never talked bad about anybody in this church or anybody. He just loved everybody, and even though pain and sufferings, and he made jokes all the time with the doctors, with the nurses. They loved him, the dialysis places, and when he lost his leg and they said, well, you got to go on dialysis, all that, I saw a little bit heaviness, but besides that, he never cried. It was always a good just a good feeling from him. Anyways, but when I first came here, Greg, he's the one, he took me around, and we went to, I was telling Michael, I said, remember that car he had? And every time we had to go to the mall, we had to jump start it, so we had to push it every time, It was part of the fun of being with Greg. And every time we go eat somewhere, Greg would eat, he would eat like get a burger, he'd take it apart and eat it, It's like, I never seen him eat like that. I was like, dude, are you okay? It wasn't like everybody else. He's all, oh yeah, So, and his laugh, it was like one of a kind. He had a laugh. One day he was in the other room and he's just going, ooh, 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 ooh. And for a long time, I find, well, what are you laughing about, dude? He's, I'm watching Family Guy, And I said, oh man, I guess I better start watching it. You're just cracking up. So, but I love the guy, and I will miss him. But I know his I thought it kind of ironic that he was on the way to the airport, and it was like the last 2 days he spent, being himself, seemed real happy. He talked to me like 3 hours before that, and he just seemed him real upbeat, and it was like on the way to the airport, and he wasn't getting arrivals, but he was getting a departure. So and he's with the Lord, and I will miss him. I will truly miss him. So
I want to open this up for Josiah, who is in Washington State.
Hey, it's actually kind of both of us here. I gotta say that Greg was actually one of my closest friends. Honestly, like everybody said, there's nobody like Greg, and the church body, just everybody loved him so much. And yet, he's the kind of person that most people would look at on the outside and go, I don't see anything in him. It's kind of like, it was really Jesus. It always reminded me about how, Christ was without form or comeliness and stuff, that we wouldn't desire Jesus if we looked at him just from the outside. And but with Greg, it's like we knew the Jesus in Greg, and that's what we wanted so much. He was so part of everything. And I remember Greg and I and Joe, we hung out a lot, and we went to the A&W Long John Silver's, and we got him a pirate hat. This is back when he was still in the wheelchair before he got his prosthetic, and we were gonna wheel him across the street back to his house. Van drives by, and he's got the pirate hat on, and he starts wiggling his stump, and the people just stop and stare as they drive by real slowly. And you know, before Joe and I left Texas, I got a real opportunity to spend a lot of time with Greg because Joe and we let Greg use the vehicle, and since I didn't have a license, it just made sense to carpool. So I spent a lot of time being able to just talk with Greg and joke with Greg about all sorts of stuff, and he was the type of person you could talk to and about anything. If something was bothering you, and he always tried to bring the Lord to it, and I'm going to really miss him. I've never met anybody like him. And yeah, he's just so a part of everybody.
I don't know if anybody else had the same experience with his stories, but he'd be telling a story, and he'd be like, "Wait a second, I'm pretty sure you told me this a couple months ago."
He would tell the same stories over and over again, but you'd pretend like it was the first time you heard it. And sometimes you get a few different details depending on, how many times he's told it before.
But it was still, even though you've heard it 6 times before, somehow it was just as funny the next time.
Yeah, still just as entertaining.
Well,
and he's just we're really gonna miss.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
All right, can y'all hear me? All right, hey Jim. Well, I don't think it's going to be any different than what everyone's been sharing. But I just like to just say, just from my own experience, knowing Greg, definitely I think Amber hit it on the head. It almost seemed like he never would judge a person by the outward cover. And I remember when I first got to the Bible school, and it's wild because you have a heart to know the Lord. I'm speaking about just believers in general. You have a heart to know the Lord, and yet there's, gosh, so much, at least I guess for me, is all these things I was having to deal with at the same time of wanting to know the Lord. And I totally loved the classes that were there, all the teachers, and just in receiving from the classes. But then when the class time was over, and then I would have to start dealing with things in my mind, Greg was always there. And I can remember time and time again, it was almost like a godsend for me. I would go to the kitchen, and I'm dealing with something in my heart and just trying to, work through something. And lo and behold, there's Greg. And he's like, "What's up?" So I would just start pouring my heart out to him, just sharing with him, because he never he never saw it as a light thing. if it was bothering me, then he was there to kind of redirect my heart, and I really appreciate that. You rarely find that in a believer nowadays, but he would always basically say a couple things. Okay, he would just kind of, you guys probably remember this, but he would kind of put his two hands together and just kind of move his fingers on finger. I can't remember. I don't even know how to describe it, but he would just kind of do that while I'd be talking. And yeah, you got it, Jim. While I'd be talking, and sometimes while I was talking, I was thinking, is he even listening to me? But pretty soon after, I would just share with him what was bothering my heart, or what was basically taking my eyes off the Lord. He would basically say, well, Jimmy, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. The Lord is the same, and you just have to see him. You just need to see him. You just need to see the cross, because nothing's changed. Everything's still as it's always been. Jesus is alive and well, and you just kind of have to get your eyes back on him and look at Jesus, and that would just be like an anchor, I guess you could say it, an anchor to my soul. And I so appreciate that, because yes, Greg taught, several classes there at the Bible school. I'm sure he probably taught classes after I graduated and came here to Arkansas. But to be available outside of class time, in fact, at any time, at literally any time, and to have your heart directed towards the Lord, to me, is just something very valuable and precious. So I just appreciate having known Greg for that as well. So I think I'm...
There's a area.
Okay. Just want to say as well, I don't know necessarily Craig that very well myself, but good few years ago when we were first time there for the, we actually came to visit there first before we came to even in the conference. But I remember from Craig very, very clearly how he was really that fun guy, what Amber was talking about. He was such a joy to be around with. It's like I don't know. We had a lot of great times, and we went to once I remember we went to eat with him and Stephanie and some others with us. But it was such a great time, and we just went to eat the tacos or something. And but I don't know, just had a good time, and you could definitely sense in him whatever he looked like, whatever he was doing, whatever he was saying. But he wasn't necessarily even talking about the Lord, but you always sensed the Lord around him. He was just such a wonderful person in spite of everything. And it was actually really pleasure to know him. That was such a pleasure. I think Steve wants to say something as well.
Hey folks. Yeah, sorry if you can't hear me properly. I'm having a bit of pain, but yeah, when I first met Greg, I was like, my God, what is he doing here? And it's like, Lord, wow, are you really in this guy? It's like, and then I started to listen to him, and I saw the joy of the Lord, and I'd never seen such joy. And the scripture that comes to mind, or whatever, I don't know, it's just like entertaining angels unawares. When I think of my buddy, we barely knew the guy, but we knew him in the Lord, and we, as Aria says, we only visited a few times. But my goodness, Jesus just came forth from that brother.
Yes.
And we love you, man. And we know that you are in the
so
Lord's.
Nice.
You're in the Lord's hands. And
yeah.
Oh man, we're envious of where you are. But my goodness, we'll be there with you one day, brother. And it's just, we're here so many thousands of miles away, and we're just there with you, all there, just just being there in that special moment. It's just so special to have known someone like that. It's such a privilege for you guys to have been so close and the Lord to give you such
Yes.
time with Him. You know, we're not jealous of what you had, but we ask that each of you treasure it in your hearts, the opportunity you've had to know such a beautiful man in the Lord. Thanks, guys. Amen.
And also, I want to say something else. Can I say something else yet? I want to say that I had once a chance to actually draw something for him as well, and that was a great honor for me that he wanted something. So that's all. But have a great with you there. Bye.
Hi, everybody. I'm gonna be the only one to cry. Sorry. But just like everybody said, Greg was always happy. He impacted me so much in the Lord my whole life from when we first came there. And he used to get such a kick out of when I was pregnant and I had dreadlocks and I was pierced and he had a mohawk. And people would think we'd go to Sack and Save and they'd look at us and give us dirty looks and look away. And he just thought that was so funny. And oh my word, he loved Ezzy. The biggest impact I think in the Lord, other than just being funny all the time, always there, always stable, was he showed me that being crucified with Christ, it's not doesn't void your personality. It's a nature. It takes away that nature of sin in Adam. But he was such a witness of that Christ living through us it doesn't take away our soul the way the Lord made us. And I loved Greg so much. He kept me from running away from the Bible school so many times in the younger years, and now he has influenced Ezzy, and he has been that solid rock for her. And we're really gonna miss him. That's all.
Okay. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Just wanted to just take an opportunity to just echo again what everybody else has already said. I had the pleasure of really getting to know Greg a little better when I was in Texas as well. And Greg, as Chris had mentioned, he was on dialysis, and was giving him rides in the morning. And I don't remember, it was pretty early, and but it never ceased to amaze me that our conversation never turned to anything but the Lord. Greg always had the Lord to share, and I have to say, I thought at first, it blessed me to be able to help Greg in that way. My dad was also on dialysis before he passed away, and it was just a really special time for me. But as that time drew to an end, what I realized was that the Lord had really put that together because I needed Greg, and Greg was really there for me. In as much as I was there for him, I drove a car, but he shared the Lord with me, and we always had great conversations. And I really got to, not that the jokes weren't there and all that, and they always were there. It's just a part of who Greg is. And I think Amber or somebody had mentioned about, just looking on the outward appearances. And I think with Greg, what I realized even just today is this, that Greg was more comfortable with who he was in Christ than most of us are. Most of us spend a lot of time trying to understand who we are in Christ, and he knew who he was in Christ, and he was okay with that. And it didn't really, outward appearances or any of those things didn't really matter to him, and that really spoke to me. And Greg, as you all know, he taught classes there, but I think a lot of his teaching for me, it even came through the T-shirts that he wore. A lot of the thing that Greg wore his feelings in his heart on his not on the sleeve, but right on the front and the back of his shirts. And I'll never forget my favorite shirt that he wore was "Silence is golden, but duct tape is silver." So I'll never forget that. And I'll tell you what, I would, if I could find that shirt, I'd definitely wear it in his memory, and that would continue on. But Greg, in spite of that, I agree. He never complained. I never heard him complain, ever. Never once. He sometimes out of dialysis, he came out pretty rough and worn down, but he was always thankful. And I just want to say that Greg was not just my friend. He was our brother. And so I just appreciate him today and his memory. And it'll be weird not to see him when we come there. It definitely will be, and he'll be missed. But we love you, Greg. Thank
Um, yeah, I just want to share something real quick. Everything everyone said is kind of what I experienced too. But I remember the first time I met him, I went over to the States for 19 days just to kind of hang out. And um, I remember I walked into a room and Greg was lying there and he was drinking one of Joseph's empty cans. Joseph was on a Joseph Stevens was on some sort of energy drink binge because he hadn't been sleeping for like 4 days and he looked manic. And I think Greg was sort of there to keep him keep him on the leash. And I remember going in, I was like, whose idea was it to put these two people in a room together? He was wearing a skull mask when I came in. I think he knew I was coming, and Joseph was in his bunk and he was like making these little cooing sounds, and I was just like, what is going on? You know, I think Ben had just like left me here, and I was like, oh, what? Come all the way across on my own, and I had to live with these guys, but I treasured every moment after that. He was really special. I was only maybe 15 at the time, and he left some words with me that stuck with me my whole life. I remember saying before I left, I got down on my knees and we were having a prayer at like 6 in the morning, and like nobody looks good at 6 in the morning. So no, it's really we're really clued in at all. I remember everyone was just sort of glued to their coffee mug. But Greg, I remember praying, I don't want to lose this. Whatever I had felt from everyone there, even at a young age, I had said, I don't want to lose this. And Greg turned around to me. He had a really unique way of being offhand, but it would pierce. He looked me right in the eye and said, Ed, if you're serious about this, nothing's ever going to leave. And, after that, things happened on my own way, but that always came back to me, and it was like reverberating in my being. And that was just the way he was. He was the most unreligious, unapologetic, unoffending, if you really knew him, no offense given, servant I've ever met. And very special brother. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say, a huge amen to everything that everyone has said so far that I've been able to hear. And my experience with Greg was when I come down to visit to see my kids and grandchildren, and Greg would always be there. He'd be sitting there in the chair and waiting to chat with me. And even though I didn't see him very often, those times were such a witness to me. I think of all he's going through, and like everyone said, there was no complaining. He had such a spirit of peace and so much rest upon him. And, it was just amazed me, and it was such a testimony. And I was so grateful for him and the friendship that we did have and shared in the Lord. And I'm so happy for Greg that he's in glory with Jesus, and just so thankful for his life and the huge testimony of the Lord to everyone that knew him. That's all.
Is there anybody else here that would just like to say something kind of short? I know we've got a long time. Is everybody doing okay? Do you need to stand up and stretch, or you okay? All right. So someone in here need Ben? Come on up.
I'll keep it short, but a lot of you probably remember the first time you met Greg. And I'll tell you the story of mine. I was raised Catholic, and in that setting, there's habits and priestly garments and, what have you. And Kelly got saved and came home to visit, talking about Jesus a whole bunch, and Jesus this and talking about Jesus. And, about 10 years old, I'm going to visit Kelly and see the Bible school, the place she's been talking about. And Greg was the first person I saw right in that lobby as we walked in the front door. And he was wearing, a lot of you probably remember these, he had Doc Marten British flag boots that went up to his knees. Mohawk, and religion within me was just completely shattered, confused maybe a little bit. But he, everyone's already said it. He was one of the most stable guys in the Lord I've ever known. He was there for me through a lot of tough times. He was a great counselor. And he was an original punk rocker, and I think that needs to be said. Knowing Greg made me feel like I had an upper hand on everyone else. Living in Denton, there's a lot of different types of people, and whenever I saw punk rock kids, I just thought, you're a poser. I know Greg Valle. You're 20 years old. You're not the real deal. I know this guy. He's the real deal. So anyway.
And I've known Greg for a long time too, in a little bit of a different way than y'all did. But Greg was a music lover, as we're talking about, punk rocker, and a goth also. We must not forget, he was also a goth, you guys. Yeah, and metal and anything heavy. I know one time Greg used to come see the band that Michael and I play in, and I'm so thankful for him and to have known him in that way. But anyway, one time he told me, Jenny, so when we go on stage, and it's pretty informal here in Denton, and I always have my purse with me, and so when it came Shiny's time to play, I'd walk up on stage with my purse, put my purse down behind my drum or whatever, and then we would ensue, and our music's pretty heavy, and it can be dark, it isn't always, but Greg really liked it, so he always was amused like that. I come up there with my little skirt or whatever, and I've got my purse, and I put it down, and then, we proceed to play this kind of heavy, somewhat dark music, and so that made him laugh. I thought I would share that. But I just wanted you, Greg is such a great guy, and it's been really sad for Mike and I to think that he's not in the world anymore, but it's just nice to remember him, and just really grateful that such a cool, awesome guy was a small part of our life. So I'm thankful for that.
I think what just got me the most, and people have said it, but I really just saw that he just knew who he was, and he appealed to everybody. I mean, even Albert from Holland was fascinated with this guy who has green hair, and if you know Albert, they're very strict and, by the book, and I just saw a little bit of Greg would just be able to get in there, and you just couldn't deny Jesus in the guy. You just couldn't deny that the guy had life and verve, and it's just like, through all the tough times, like he never complained, he never did these things, but he loved everybody. He didn't care if you were, the complete opposite of him. He still loved you and showed for you, and he wasn't cliquey or anything like that. And as I just have seen him, that's what stuck out to me the most, was just that he was there for everybody. He was just himself, comfortable with who he was, and to me that just, I think, like Ben said, he just was stable and wasn't going to change because to fit a certain type of look. This is just who I am, and love me for who I am. And for me, that's just been blessed me the most in thinking back of an encouragement that he's just, this is who I am, love me and accept me, and I'll miss him. I just miss his, just his love for life that he had, even though he was probably the most afflicted person that you can ever think of. I mean, losing body parts by the year, and I can't even imagine going through all that and never complaining or never losing hope. So, thank you.
I need to apologize to you guys because I'm probably the reason that he stopped doing the wild hair crazy things. When Josh went off to the Air Force Academy, and I was really missing him. And that's when Greg started shaving his hair. And one day I went up and I went like that on his head. I said, you know, it really reminds me of Josh. And every week he would shave his head just so that it would be that length for me. And I just loved him so much.
Just three short things, not really any different than anybody else has said. You know, I was saved whenever I was a young boy in the second or third grade, but I was never comfortable. There was so much religion, you know, just infused. And Greg, through him, I learned how to be comfortable in my own skin. And to me, that's precious, because up until the point that I came to this place, I was not. And that was a lot of years of loving Jesus, but not knowing, you know, that you could be yourself. You know, God, somebody said it's the nature, not the personality of the person you are. And my favorite thing about Greg was his T-shirts. And my favorite one, I just have to say it, was God's last name is not damn it. I love that shirt. Every time I'd see him in it, you know, and I mean, he wore it here, Sunday, whenever, you know, he just threw it on. And, you know, that whatever religious spirits are in the room about at that point kind of got to leave, you know. And then the third thing was, you know, I, as I've been thinking, the scripture that comes to my mind is that where it talks about Jesus being a man of no reputation, you know, and he just never set himself up high in any way, you know. He just, I mean, if you didn't know him, you wouldn't think of him as having a reputation, you know, other than what you would think, you know, you saw, but outward, you know. And yet, you know, listening to all these testimonies, what a reputation he had.
I want to cover a couple of things that really haven't been mentioned yet, a few fun facts about Greg. Excuse my voice. He and I got to do a lot of ministry stuff together. We were Dean of Men and Dean of Women together at the Bible school, so we had to make decisions together a lot. We're also on the board for Acts together, so we had a lot of meetings together. So I knew him on that level. I have to say, he's one of the best judges of character I had ever met in my life. He could see right through anybody to who they really were. So I just want to say that about him, because it really was an amazing quality. I didn't even believe him. He would tell me things at times, Mallory, you should be aware that such and such so-and-so about this person. Oh, no, that's not true, Greg. That's just too judgmental. Well, he was right. And I'd have to go back and apologize to him for discounting his advice, because he really, really had a grip on people and who they really were. Another thing was about Greg is he didn't just like punk and thrash and goth. I would get into his car. We would run around together a lot when I lived here, and we carpooled together and shared a car for years. We would pick each other up from work. I'd get in the car one day, and he's playing Barry Manilow. And I'm just like, oh my God. He's like, what? Another day it's John Denver, you know? Another day it's Mozart. You know, you just never knew what you were going to get. And I asked him, well, why do you play that music? And he said, well, I just like it. You know, so he really did know who he was. So that was pretty cool. And just on the lines of his character, which some things have already been said, but he never used anybody for his own ends. He was your friend, and he had your back. And I said that about him when he was alive. I'm not just saying that because he's gone now, but I would always say, and it's true, that if I were in a war and I was in a foxhole, I'd want Greg in that foxhole with me, because he would give his life for his friends, and that's a fact. And I just really appreciate that about him. And one time, he and I, you know, we've been friends for over 20 years. I also met him at the Street Ministries Conference when Randy did, and Kelly and I met him together. And in all those years, we've been very good friends, and we only gotten one disagreement in all those years, one disagreement. And it was a pretty serious disagreement. But I will have to say, what it was about was that he felt like I had mistreated somebody. He was going to defend that person. He was not going to stand for someone being mistreated. And it turned out to be a misunderstanding. But the fact that he would just go to the mat for anybody and have their back whether they even knew it or not. It was just a real testament to his character that he really felt the desire to protect and love the Lord's body and his people, and I just really appreciate that about him.
Okay, everybody still doing okay? Scott, why don't you come and do that one song?
This is a song that's familiar to some of y'all. When my load seems heavy and the road seems so long, when my burden seems too much for me to bear, when my heart grows weary from the sin I wish to leave, but I still hang on though my words say I believe. Oh Lord, you said that you would never leave my side. You said that you would always stand nearby. You said that you would fill me with your spirit and your love, and your peace would flow like rivers through my soul. When my friends forsake and leave me, when my brothers turn away, when my heart is crushed beneath the weight of life, I can look to you for comfort, and in you I find real peace, even when the trials never seem to cease. Oh Lord, you said that you would never leave my side. You said that you would always stand nearby. You said that you would fill me with your spirit and your love, and your peace would flow like rivers through my soul.
I'd like to read an excerpt. It's not the entirety, but it's a piece that Greg wrote some time ago. And it goes along with the lines that basically it's who he was. And he starts out with, it's called Standing in the Same Place. And this is Greg speaking because he wrote it. When Moses asked the Lord about what he should tell the Egyptians, who it was that sent him to them, the Lord told him to only say that I am who I am has sent me. God does not need to justify who he is before the world. He is who he is, and if people want to be offended at that, then so be it. So people have been trying to change the image of God for thousands of years in an attempt to get him to conform and fit into their box. No, God, you must be like this because that is the way I want you to be. Sadly, it is not just the world who have this mentality, but Christians as well. We have just learned how to make it sound as if we are broken and humble when we present our tantrums before him. I am who I am. I cannot be anything other than that. For when I try to become something other than I have become someone false, I have become someone false. I struggled for years with that issue, not understanding why so many Christians had such a hard time with people like me, constantly trying to get me to conform to some image they believed better suited me. I explained to a well-meaning grandmother who was a member of a church I attended in California that what you saw is what you got. She was convinced that I was either in rebellion or hiding something. I must admit that in my early years as a believer, I took much offense at people and their comments. There was a lot of rough spots that needed rubbing and friction to deal with some of the built-up hardness in my life. Yet I had always wanted to be in the will of God. That led me to take the lower seat many times. I chose to never push who I am on others. There have been places where I was willing to leave on good terms because it was not my heart to offend or to cause someone to stumble. I'm not the average Christian. Most people's first thought when they look at me is not that I must be a Christian. Most people think of me as a punk or a goth. I wear a lot of black. I like black, and I do not feel drawn to darkness except when I look in my closet. The way I communicate the Lord is the way he has formed in me. My life is Christ, and I will always keep that central. My outward appearance, my music, and the things I enjoy will never take precedence over the cross. I realize that people only see a goth or a punk because the religious system has drowned the minds of the public with a particular image that is neither Christ or moral. It may look good, but it is a whitewashed tomb. I do not want to be that, though I know that I can become one if I allow who I am to take the lead. Self-deception is an equal opportunity employer. I am at peace with who I am, even if others are not. It is not my desire to offend them, but some just need to get over themselves. Yet don't we all? The Lord has put me here to be a vessel of the living God, a seed willing to die for the sake of others. I have indeed suffered scars at the hands of Christians because of who I am. But I have an understanding of the culture that many of my brothers and sisters do not. They are my people, and I want the Lord for them, as much as others want to see their people know the God they have come to know by life. There are many others like me in the church world. We are not seen because we choose not to put ourselves forward. Sometimes it is because some fear the rejection of the church. No matter what the reason may be, if we are in Christ, then we are all standing in the same place, black, white, male or female, conservative or goth. We are here to manifest the nature and government of our God in his Son, Jesus Christ the Lord. And I'd like Kelly to come and share that song.
I have a song I want to share. Sarah asked me to say something, and that is that many of you know Ezra Jane, and Greg told me and many of us that that was his daughter. He loved her so much, and Sarah said that, as he said that, even more than her real dad, as Greg was the father to her. And Greg was so special to teenagers, to young people. Greg is just beloved, and I'm sorry, He was one of my best friends. I'm sorry for being so emotional. I'm just going to miss him. But Amber wrote this song, Amber Hubbard, and it just reminds me of Greg. And every time I look through my songs, this one came up. So I just sing it for him and in memory of the beautiful heart that is Greg and always will be and has left such a deep imprint on all of us. And we just love you, Greg. Okay. Jim Thornton, he sure did love you. So much. Mike and Jenny sure did love you. So much. Mike, yeah. Man, his heart went deep and it went wide. That's what this song's about. Trembling, you run away, saying I am too far gone. Catch me if you can. Trembling, you run away, saying I am too far gone. So catch me if you can. This is Greg. Well, I am right behind you, and I'll stand right beside you. My friend, you don't need to be afraid. Lonely, you hide away, saying I am hurt and causing hurt. Let my life end. Lonely, you hide away, saying I am hurt and causing everyone to hurt. Let my life end. But Christ is all around you, and He's right inside you. Just come back to Him this day. It is finished. Love is complete. Just stay, just stay, just stay. 'Cause I am right beside you, and I stood right behind you. My friends, you don't need to be afraid.
Just wanted to share just a little bit here, because most of it's already been said, but felt it fitting to read from 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 17. This is from the Amplified because it is so precise. It says, therefore, if any person is engrafted in Christ, the Messiah, he is a new creation, a new creature altogether. The old, previous moral and spiritual condition has passed away. Behold, the fresh and new has come. And continuing on then, in the New American, it says, now all these things are from God, who reconciled us to Himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation, namely that God was in Christ, reconciling the world to Himself, not counting their trespasses against them. And He has committed to us the word of reconciliation. Therefore, we are ambassadors or representatives for Christ, as though God were entreating through us. We beg you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God. He made him, Jesus, who knew no sin, to be sin on our behalf, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. I think that's a very fitting passage in explaining Greg's life. Greg was very settled in who he was in Christ Jesus. There was no doubt in his heart and in his life that he was in Christ Jesus, that Christ was his life. And he was so founded on that he didn't falter one way or the other. He wasn't perfect. And that's where a lot of Christians go wrong, is they're trying to be perfection and perfect. And other Christians look at somebody and they make a mistake, and thinking that they should, as established as they are, they should be perfect. And we're not looking for perfection. That's not, all of us have sinned, and we all fail. But Greg was settled in who he was in Christ, even in the midst of mistakes that he made. And but it was just, we heard it over and over and over today, how by being established that way, he always was loving and ready to give testimony, ready to bring someone back, somebody that had been hurt that is out there. And he reached out to anybody and would desire to draw them back, to reconcile them back to the Lord. And he had patience, and he would listen. He was a great counselor. And the thing that we need to understand is that's because Christ was his life. He allowed the Lord to do that, to form in him in such a way that that's the way our Lord is. That's the way Christ is. He is that way. And so all the good aspects of Greg is Christ. If you were drawn to him, you were drawn to the Jesus that lived in him through his personality. And so wherever you're at, there is that passage that says there's no condemnation for those that are in Christ Jesus. A lot of times there's always that upon us that says, oh, I wish I would have done this, and I wish I would have done this. And the enemy, the devil, will try to put condemnation upon you because you didn't say that last thing to him, or just whatever it is. There's no condemnation. But the lesson that I think that Greg will want us all to know the Jesus that he knew. It's the same Jesus. He's not expecting you to change into his image. He expects you to be changed into the image of Christ, and allow Jesus to live in you and through you. And I think that's really what Greg would want us to put our eyes on, is don't put them on Greg. Put them on Jesus, the Christ that lived in him and made him the way that he was, the loving person, the listening person, the one that was always available, the one that was always, he never complained, it has been said. That was only Christ in him. If he was living in his flesh, he had the ability to gripe. But he was an ambassador for Christ, and that's the expectation there. We are ambassadors for Christ and Greg just fits that perfectly. Joined to Christ Jesus, and it was Christ that lived in him in a very real way. A very real way. He didn't play games. He didn't put on airs. It was the real deal. And so at this time, I think I'll have our senior minister, Randy, come forward and close us out with any thoughts that you may have, Randy.
That sounds so official. It's just me. I wasn't thinking about doing this till Mallory spoke, but feel like singing Greg a song. Maybe some of you know it. You know I can't smile without. You like that, Greg? We had that kind of a relationship. I want to also just read a little poem. You know, this thing can be seen from our side, and it can be seen from Greg's side. And I know that we need a time to grieve also. But you know, Greg's not grieving. You know, Greg's not grieving. And the poem is called Smile Because He Lived. You can shed tears that he is gone, for that's okay, or you can smile because he lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind and be empty and turn back, or you can do what he would want. Smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. You know, some years ago I was doing a funeral for someone that was very strong in the Lord, and they had gone on to be with him, and they were very close to me. And someone came up to me and said, they said, well, I'm sorry for your loss. And it just occurred to me that, you know, something's not lost if you know where it's at. Anybody know where Greg's at? He's with Jesus. He's with the one that he loved. He loved Jesus. That was his way. That was his heart. That was who he was long before he ever met me or came to this place. That's Greg. And another thing that I've just felt is apropos for some, and that is that, for example, my situation where I've been down and out with this hernia, and then I was gone for the pneumonia. So I never really got to say goodbye. And I think there are probably many of you here that didn't really get that opportunity. And I think that it is appropriate that maybe we take the time to do that we just sort of bow our heads, and each person just under your breath or in your heart, you not only say goodbye, but you say to him the things that you would have liked to say, just one sentence or however much, but that you would communicate to him, and I believe he hears. I believe he hears. I believe that he can, I believe that he knows what's going on right here. And to just do that, and only you know what you would say to him. If he, you know, for example, if he were literally right here and you could say that, well, he is right here in that sense. And he will hear that prayer. And then after we've taken a few moments for you to be able to do that in your own way, in your own heart, then I'll close out just with a short word of prayer. So let's bow our heads, and you just tell him what you would have said had he been here, and just tell him goodbye in your own way. Father, we feel the loss. We ask you to just comfort us with your love and to help us, Lord, through the grieving process and give us peace as he is with you. We'll miss you, Greg, and we'll always love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
We've got some finger food and some cake and stuff, so it's open to anyone that would like to stay and share and do some fellowshipping together. And we're dismissed now.